Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, this is the original governor, Martin Stone, and this is the Free Count Podcast.
I'm in fashion, roll with cold passion.
Welcome everybody to another great edition of the Three Count Podcast presents Now Into the Ring, and I'm your host, Clifford Red Dog Miller, the man that leads you up that mountain called wrestling. That's right. And after our 300-something episode, season 4, I would think you would finally just say with me, I am your Sherpa, because just like your tribal chief, acknowledge me. But like every good Sherpa, you gotta have someone who's been there, done that, and can do it more efficiently than you can. And that's why it's never about me. It's about who's entering the ring. So who's entering the ring today? You can find this man at CCW. You can find this man at WWE, NXT, 205 Live, Raw, WXW, Beyond, RPW. He's been at NYWC. He's been a part of GCW, NWL, ACW, and SWE Fury. He is a multiple time tag team champion, a multiple promotion champion. He is coming to us across from the pond, but he is very fluent and strong style. He is the original governor himself, Martin Stone.
What an introduction. Thank you so much, my man.
Hell yeah, yo, I am super hyped, man, because we actually have a common friend, right? She actually linked us, and I was super hyped for her because Lane is such an incredible person, and I love her to death. And the ability to get to talk to somebody who's been not only to like the mountaintop, but has the experience and the time in this great sport, this great production, what people call wrestling. I'm super excited. I get to chat it up with someone who I admire from a distance.
Well, I appreciate that, mate. So thank you.
But for our people who don't know, which you should, who is Martin Stone?
Who is Martin Stone? Martin Stone is a journeyman wrestler that has been on this path for this will be 20 years in June of this year. Grew up as a wrestling fan. From the first moment I saw wrestling when I was 7, I realized that this is exactly what I wanted to do. And yeah, I've been blessed. Who would have thought that a kid from London, England would be able to, at some point in time, earn a living in America for one of the biggest wrestling companies in the world and become a champion? Like, just this mind-blowing for me.
Yeah, it's one of those things where like when I watched you like going in through like NXT and just tearing up on the scene, like I was like, yo, this is like I have to watch all this man stuff because like not only are you just like really snug, right? But you also like just have this ability to like work like different locks and different holds. And so like I became like a fan of like watching you go in and out of like different tie-ups or even just different type of wrist lock. And I was like, man, like let's be real, British style wrestling is like is different from like an American style.
Yes.
But it's just so much more fun to watch. And I know like a good friend of mine, Prince Machiavelli, is definitely gonna be upset because he is such a massive fan of like the UK type wrestling, and he's been an avid fan of yours as well. But it's just one of those things I just kind of wanted to figure out, like, how was the transition from, obviously like from British strong style to American style of wrestling, and what were the differences and similarities?
So it just gets to a point when you work all the time and I trained for like 2 years solid. I was really blessed. I had the chance to train with Dave Taylor, William Regal. I even had the chance to get in the ring with Chris Benoit and just train and work around and just work holds and just do stuff like that. It just comes to a point when you are comfortable with okay, I know what I'm doing. You should be able to do that with any person. Doesn't matter doesn't matter if they're from Mexico, Japan, Puerto Rico, America, Scotland. It doesn't. Wrestling is a universal language. So if you know what you are doing and that person knows what they're doing, you're going to make magic. It's as simple as that. And it's just, so my whole thing was just, okay, I need to be the best version of me so that no matter who I'm in the ring with, they're going to be able to walk out and say, A, that was a great match. B, I've walked away learning something. That was my whole goal when I got into this job. So, and I hope I've managed to do that so far, you know? So,
Well, it's one of those things where I feel like people like they kind of forget, like, because it's always been said to me, it's always been preached to me from like my trainers and even from like people in the business as well that's been in for a long time. They've always said like, if you feel like you've learned everything about the business, then get out because there's obviously nothing to teach you.
yeah. That it's wrestling it's subjective and it's open-ended. Like there's no finishing line. Like I'm sure there's guys that were 30 years before me that if they were working now, they would be like, their mind would get blown because obviously, like life, wrestling evolves, and it has to. It can't stay in one spot because then it no longer becomes wrestling. It's transitional. Like everything changes. Some for the good, some for the better, some for the worst. Which some people will always have. Well, my flavor of ice cream is Neapolitan, but then someone says, but my flavor is chocolate. But then somebody else says, well, my flavor is vanilla. So wrestling caters to all of that. And that's the beauty, the magic, and the art of professional wrestling. There is something for everyone.
That's what I love about this sport. And I was talking about it earlier with a friend of mine, and we were talking about like just the diversity in characters that you find, right? And normally and I hear this a lot, that in any kind of locker room you're gonna have about 6 characters, really diverse characters, right? But everybody's gonna make their character their own way. So you're gonna get like these massive influences of like this person and that person, or maybe this person from like the comic book world, or this person from that movie, or maybe like this one character that you saw this one time in a TV show in one appearance only, but you love this so much and then you incorporate it into like who you are. So then you get like a fresh take on a brand new character. And it's so cool to be able to watch people grow and evolve their characters like from the jump, right? I know that my character was like a mercenary based character who was very stoic, very like, down hardcore, like just didn't, and it just felt like, and it felt forced onto me, right? So I wanted to kind of evolve it and change it. And so I started playing on the fact that I was former military as well. And the one thing about a lot of military guys is that we have a lot of dark humor and we play off of that dark humor a lot. We laugh in the worst case. Like it'll be the worst thing to happen and we'll just laugh about it.
The worst thing that happens and you laugh. Yeah, I do that too. Yeah.
And so I was like, yo, I'm just going to play off of this whole idea. And I created this whole character based off of just like the dark humor side. And I love it. And it was more me. It felt natural.
Yes, exactly that. So how comfortable and natural do you feel doing that? And if you feel that's you, that's going to take you so much further than trying to be something you're not. Yeah, I've never been a gimmick. I've literally just been me, be it a heel or a face. But I've always known that my in-ring work will always be able to back up if I need to talk. So just all I can do is be me. And if it comes through and people connect with it, perfect. That's literally all we can do.
That's those things that's crazy though, is that like I know for me, like where I might lack, because obviously like being so young in the business still, even though like it's weird too, like I'm older in the game too as far as like being my age, but I'm also young because like I've been in just for a few years, and it's one of those things that I've kind of understood that like where my wrestling might lack, my character work is gonna help cover whatever it is that I've like what I'm lacking, and so until I can bridge that gap, I gotta figure it out.
You've got life experience, which will definitely help with whatever you're trying, with whatever wrestling you're trying to do. So,
but I gotta know, because like I've watched a bunch of my friends do some wild stuff on the scene, and it really scratches my head. But I want to know, what's the worst bump you've taken?
Worst bump I've taken? God. I haven't really taken any crazy bumps. I've always been, like, you wake up the next day and you've had a rough night. But I've never. The way I was trained, it was never like, don't risk your body just for the sake of I mean, I suppose there was the take over 30 when we did the 4-way ladder match, and I came off the ladder. I suppose that's the biggest bump, but it wasn't one of those when I woke up the next day and was like, oh, I've just taken 10 years of my career. I've always been very, very careful, because I've always looked at it as the long road. Like, this is a marathon, it's not a sprint. So I want to still be able to do this when I'm 50, not when I'm 25. Like, yeah, I'm going to go balls to the wall, and then, you know, I have to hang up the boots and I'm 32 because I've taken the most craziest of stuff. Props to guys that can do it and wake up the next day and feel completely fine. Like, I wish I could. Like, I'm just like, yeah, okay, perfect. That's something I've not done. Like, you know, I'm not a high flyer. I don't do anything flashy. So for me to stand out, I had to make my style as realistic as possible. I want the dad that takes his family out on a night out to go, yeah, that's a dude I wouldn't want to fuck with. You know, and that's as a face or a heel. It goes both ways. It's like, I wish I could do the stuff that Will Ospreay could. I really wish I could. It's not going to happen though. You know, like, Will is fantastic. If I could even have a glimmer of his athletic ability, I would absolutely love that. But I can't. So I have to work to my strengths, which is, how do I make this as realistic as possible to draw everybody in. So, but yeah, I've never taken a crazy bump to the point when I've been like, okay, my life was, no.
It's one of those things that you kind of mentioned is just like creating your style to like mend and mold into what you're looking for, right? Because like, even for me, like some of the characters like I had played off of and pulled from, right, was like Eddie Guerrero, William Regal, Chris Jericho, which they're not necessarily like, they are known for doing some high flying ability, but well, Eddie and Chris were, but they weren't like, that wasn't their big thing. That wasn't their main. They were just solid workers that just like could handle everything.
If you go back and watch, even if you go back and watch Chris Jericho stuff in Japan, if you go and watch Eddie when he was Black Tiger, he never did anything crazy. So it was putting the high spots in at the right time. It wasn't just doing a high spot for the sake of doing a high spot to get the crowd to pop.
Right.
Like, again, solid workers. Like, so,
and that's,
you know, like, even if you go back and watch the Eddie and Rey Mysterio matches, when Rey Mysterio first came to WCW, they did that crazy. I was watching the clip the other day. Rey was in like the purple outfit, and he like sprung up on the rope, did like a backflip, and he caught Eddie in a DDT. That was the biggest spot of the match. But it's like, you build to that. You don't like literally ding ding ding, and you don't start with that. Again, wrestling's subjective. This is just my opinion. It doesn't mean I'm right. It doesn't mean anybody else is wrong. So I don't want anyone to think that my way is the only way. I'm not like that at all. I'm open to every single thing. So just for me, I like to build to the crescendo. Bang, and then there's your big spot. There's the finish or whatever. 1, 2, 3. That's it. Match is over. But if you go back and watch those matches, they did some really like fast-paced, like big stuff. But then that was like one of the last things they did before the finish. So again, but that's wrestling evolves. So like, even though that was amazing, guys nowadays have literally taken it to the next level.
Yeah. It's funny because Halloween Havoc 97 is one of my favorite pay-per-views of like all time, which
pay-per-view,
yeah. I mean, to think like, and you got to see like this new style of wrestling with Eddie and Ray in that aspect, and then you still got to watch like the old. I don't want to say old school because that's not fair, but you got to see like the more like main eventers, right, where it was Roddy and you got to see Hogan.
You got to watch the draws,
And then you got to watch Macho Man jump off the cage, which I'll still never understand how he never blew out his knees. Like, it's a thing I'll never understand.
Yes,
but it's so crazy to me. But you're right. Like, wrestling has evolved and has changed. And it's funny because, like, I've heard the terms that it evolves, but then, like, it always circles back around, right? Because I know, like, just feeling on the indie scene, right, and listening to a lot of people and listening to fans, like even though they remember like a big spot that happened in a match, they are still like very much attracted like the characters that like made that spot possible.
Yep.
Because I mean, people still talk about like war games, right, where Adam Cole and Tommaso Ciampa did like the air raid crash through the tables, but they're also gonna talk about just how cool like Adam Cole was, or like how awesome like you were, right, in WWE. Like you were just like out here like smashing people, and people will remember those kind of characters who were out here just like making impacts and having genuine connections. And I feel like wrestling is starting to get back to that, because I can see people love Aleister Black, people love a Bray Wyatt, people love watching people like Will Ospreay, because Will Ospreay's like character, even though he's great at doing flips and stuff, his character's starting to take off too, and people are starting to like get attracted to that as well.
Yeah, no, Will has evolved massively. Like Will is, Will Ospreay is one of my favorite performers to watch. He's fantastic. Him and Kenny Omega was, what an absolute barn burner that was.
I will never forget that DDT spot, because I've never thought about how you could do that spot safely, and they did.
Yeah, well, did they? Who knows? Nah.
Yeah, okay, that's true.
You can say that as workers. Oh, well, it's safe because it carried on. Was it? We don't know.
Yeah, well, no, I don't know. I don't know how Will does it.
That was an absolutely fantastic match. Like, just absolutely fantastic. Like, all just mind blowing. Like, so watching the New Japan show that recently happened. Battle in the Valley, was it?
Yeah, with Mercedes Moné.
Yeah, that's right. Eddie Kingston and Jay White had literally one of my favorite matches I've ever watched. That was literally just a wrestling fight, and it was perfect. It was perfect. That's the type of wrestling I get excited to watch. Like,
I love when seeing two styles that don't think you're gonna work, and then they just beautifully blend it.
And it just makes art. Like, that was, I worked Eddie a few years ago, and it was one of my most favorite matches, because he literally was like, okay, we're going to do this and this, and like, so we got to the fist, and it was like boom, 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 on all the forces, and it taught me so much, and I was just like, why is this guy not everywhere? Like, why is he not signed to, like, he'll never know, and he may hear it now if he listens to this, but just, he taught me so much in that match on how to structure a finish and make it mean something, and the timing and the selling of each, like, just, it was mind blowing. Like, just, and then watching that match, I was just like, it was so good. It was perfect. So there's nothing I can fault about the match. It was so good.
Yeah, I have to agree. I was watching that and like just taking notes and just like really like trying to understand like not just like the psychology behind it, but like also trying to interpret like, all right, so they hit this here. Why did that pop here? What did that do? So I've watched that match probably like 5 or 6 times, like going back. And it's a marathon to watch, but I enjoy every minute of it.
But also as well, you have to realize that both those guys are established. Super, super established. So it's like, but they've also had the story of Jay constantly picking at the scab of Kingston. So it's like that there's been that initial gnawing in the background. So it's like it's built to a crescendo. Again, about it. Wrestling will always come down to good guys and bad guys, cowboys and Indians. That's always what it's going to come down to. So you have the perfect hero in Kingston, and then you have the perfect bad guy in Jay White. So there's no way it was not going to work. For me, it took me out of my box, and it took me back to being a fan again, which is, for this real bitter, jaded fucker, that took a lot. That like it was great. The last time I felt like that was watching Kevin Owens against Austin at Mania. Like, that literally turned me into a fan again. I was just like, this is so good. Like those two matches in the last 2 years of I've just been like, all right, I'm a fan again. I can just literally sit back and watch this and just enjoy it. So
That's cool though, and I'm glad to hear like those are like two of those matches because we've talked like so we have our debate show that happens every Sunday on here, and
Okay.
we we've talked about like both those matches like in depth and just like how and we put those over like time and time again because we were talking about like well obviously just recently with Eddie Kingston and Jay White, but Austin and Kevin Owens like was just it was just on another plane. Like it was just like you're watching like multiple stories be told
Yep.
in one match, and it was so
Yep.
good.
And and again, you had the few internet keyboard fans that were like, "Well, Austin wasn't the same." And I'm like, did you not hear the crowd when they were in that match? That's all I'm going to say. Like, just that's all I'm going to say. And the same with that match. Like, just like Kingston and what, like, just I can't put that match up. And I watched it. Watched it on today, Monday. Watched it Saturday, and then literally I've watched it like 4 times since then. I'm just like, this legitimately is one of my favourite matches I've ever seen. I would have loved to have seen it live to hear the crowd. I would have absolutely loved to have seen that live to hear the crowd and when there was the turnarounds and stuff like that. Because I mean, it was fantastic. And again, the same with Kevin Owens and Austin. I would have loved to have been in the crowd to hear that reaction, especially on the initial when they were doing the promo. And it was like, well, I came here for a fight, so I guess it's you. And that initial uproar, I would have loved to have been in the crowd for that.
Oh, I still get chills like thinking about it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I've come here for a fight tonight, and I was just like, I literally turned into me in 2000 when I was like, yeah.
It's one of those things too. What I love is like I love like good promos. Like I'm a huge like I'm gonna say what it is, and it's fine. I'm a huge mark for like good promos, right? And so
right. I'm going to stop you right there. There's no such thing as a mark. There's a fan. There's no such thing as a mark because if you're a mark, it puts a target on your back. You're a fan. So
okay. I like that. I'm. You know what? I'm gonna start using that from now on.
Right
I love this.
No such thing as a mark. You're a fan, and there's nothing wrong with it.
So as a fan, I'm a massive fan of good promos, right? So watching MJF and Regal together in the ring, and to watch the crowd just like sway back and forth as this like beautiful story was being told between these two. I was like, the fact that MJF got the whole crowd to boo Regal, only to have Regal turn the crowd back over. I was like, I feel like people are missing the masterpiece that's being delivered right here.
So, and again, this is just my opinion. Doesn't mean it's right or it's wrong. I feel that some of the wrestlers today, be it on the big stage or on the independent level, I often feel they let the crowd dictate the pace of their matches. And no, we are the conductors. The fans pay to see us, so we need to take them on the roller coaster, not the crowd take us on the roller coaster. And when you can truly get a performer that can go, no, we're going that way now. That's wrestling. That's the art of wrestling and the beauty of wrestling.
I agree. I love the aspect that because I get told that a lot too as a performer. Like my job is to take fans on these like crazy roller coaster rides, ins and outs, loops, twists and turns. But it all comes down to just like making sure that structure makes sense at the end of the day. Because like what ends up happening is people, like you said, they throw a random spot in there and there's no real rhyme or reason behind it.
Yeah, because obviously, I always, you're not going to shoot someone first and then stab them, you're going to, you might slice them a few times first and you'll duck something and do this. Then they start to overpower, then boom, then you'll shoot them and there's the finish. But like, you're not just going to walk up and like, bang, stab, like, so that's a very brash way of saying it, but just like you always want to try and make it. It doesn't matter if it's like 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 6 minutes, 10 minutes, 30 minutes. You always want to try and build to the, in my opinion, you want to try and build to the big, like to the big thing, and boom, you're done. You know, some people can do it backwards, and they can start with the biggest thing, and it blows my mind. I'm like, whoa, where are they going to go now? But then they manage to top it. So as long as you can top what you do, like everything's building.
Right.
So it's like
No,
the ability to go out there and you hit like, I don't know, if it's like running big boot, you go up to the top and you hit like a 630 splash, bang. In my head, I'd be like, what are you going to do for the finish? But then they go out there, they completely top it, and I'm like, oh, well, that's perfect. Like,
I agree.
no, it is. Again, you know, like I can't do that, so I have to structure my matches and pace my matches differently. So like,
Yeah.
guys can go out there and hit a massive move, but then they can top it 2-3 moves later. They go bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and I'm just like, that's wrestling. Like you always end with the biggest spot, and it's just for me. I don't like to see guys that think they can do that, but then they can't and they fall short, and then they're like, oh, my match didn't work, you know. And that's when I'm just like, hey, slow down, pull this back, don't do as much on the get-go. Like you're not at Will Ospreay's level yet, so pull it back a little bit. You might get there eventually, but pull it back a little bit. Try something smaller, then hit something bigger, then hit your big move last. You know, I mean, again, like so many guys have literally transcended what wrestling was in terms of how they can build to the biggest spot. Look at Pac, for instance. Pac is, you know, you have genetic freaks in all walks of life. You have guys that are like 7'5". You have guys that are like 6 foot, but they're like 500 pounds, but they are chiseled granite. And then you have guys like Pac that completely defy gravity. So it's like, if you can top what you can do, what I would consider a big move, and I'd be like, whoa, what you can do for the finish? And then they're like, oh my God, and then everything keeps built. That's wrestling. It doesn't matter how it gets there, as long as in my opinion, as long as the biggest thing is last, you've told the story. You are constantly fighting from underneath and building and building and building and building. Taking the crowd on that roller coaster ride, and there's the big dip, and then you drop out, you know?
No, I agree 100% because it's one of those things that like, and you bring up a great example in Pac, because Pac's one of those guys, like even his biggest move, right, which some people will say is the Black Arrow, right? That brutalizer that he hits at the end where he can just legit put people out with, it's so cool to watch him get into it. And at the end of the day, I watch people like get put in this move, and then you just see, you know, obviously like that's the choke point. Like you're at the end, and like even if he hit the brutal or he hits the Black Arrow, right, he still finishes with the brutalizer to show people I'm not pinning these dudes. I'm just making them pass out or tapping them out. And I dig those kind of finishes all the time.
Yeah, it's again, like the more vicious, and again for me, the type of wrestling I like to watch, the more vicious and violent you can make it look, you can't beat that, because you're just like, oh, I don't want to look, but oh.
Yes. Yeah, and it's wild to think, because like you said, like there's a variety of ways to like structure a match and put it together, and we're not going to talk about that part here because we're going to talk about that offline. Sorry guys, you can't be a part of that conversation. Even if you was a premium subscriber, we wouldn't let you behind there. But it is interesting to hear about like different ways of like structuring things, from like being high flyers to being ground workers to even being just pure strikers. Like it's cool to see the many paths that you could take to obviously get to the conclusion of whatever that match is going to be.
Yeah. I think my best example of that would be Chris Hero. Just I've never like, Chris is literally one of the best wrestlers I've ever had the pleasure of A, wrestling, and B, watching. I've never seen someone be able to take the most basic of move and make it a big thing. But it's just that's a hard question. Oh, how dare you?
Yeah.
You stumped me. Hard one.
Well, and it goes back to where, Chris Hero is one of those guys that legitimately has trained, and I feel like Chris Hero has trained in every single style that's out there, and is still learning, which is really cool to be talking about too. To kind of tie it back to the start of what we were talking, but he's and like you said, like he takes like the simplest moves, and it becomes like the biggest move that you've ever seen, and it could be a hip toss, and you're like, match is over.
Yeah,
Chris has
yeah,
Chris has done it.
yes. That's a really good question. That's cool. You stumped me on that one. Move on, quick.
Hey, so a question I do have though, and it's one of my
Please.
favorite. I love to ask people. What do you think is five traits to a character to help get that person over?
I don't even know if there's 5 traits. If you are a babyface, you need to be the underdog, but then you also need to be believable in that role. Yeah, and then I think if you've got that, you the greatest wrestling movie in the world is Rocky. That whole you know, the guy that came from nothing, that was never given a shot, but then somehow did it. That's the greatest babyface wrestling story in the world. And there wasn't 5 traits. It was just 2. It was just, well, all right, I'm Rocky. As a heel, just I think you like the lines kind of blur today, because it's like, are there heels and baby faces anymore? Like, as much as Roman's a heel, it's like, is the bloodline, are they really heels? Like, I mean, it's been the greatest thing that I've seen, you know. Are you really feeling Usi tonight? Like, like, it's just been too entertaining. But like, I think for me, the best performer in the last like 20 years, like even the last 10 years, has been Randy Orton.
Mm.
I don't like he, for me, just when I watch him, I'm just like, he legitimately is the best ever. So it's like, as a heel, like me personally, I wouldn't say there's 5 traits. I just think, as a babyface, if you can sell, and you're the underdog, and you can make people believe in you, it can get there. As a heel, you need to be vicious, you need to be cruel, sadistic, and then just, if you're unrelenting in your pursuit of keeping whatever you got to do. So 4 for a heel and 3 for a babyface. That's the most I could say. I don't think there's 5 to say that would be, again, my opinion, could be wrong, but just the way I look at it, I'm just like, there's not really boxes you can check off for that. Just it just comes down to the crowd being able to believe in you. So you need to be genuine in how you work and how you sell, and if you're a face, like, how can you connect with a crowd? How can you make them feel sympathy for you? If you're a heel, how can you make that crowd hate you? How can you make the woman in the front row want to spit on you? Like, it's, so 3 and 4, I'd say, my opinion.
I like that though. I like that a lot, because like it's definitely one of those things, because like, in one state, like, I'm a complete baby face and like just severely loved, right?
Yeah.
But in another state, I am a heel, and like, people don't like me like a lot, and I love both sides.
But guess
And
what?
like
Exactly. How much fun is that? Being able to work different styles, work different people, change if you're going to be a face or a heel. Like, that's the best part of wrestling. Like, just, you know, you change different things from place to place, and then finally, boom, it settles as to, you know, well, I've been trying this and trying that, trying this and trying that, trying this and trying that. Boom, there's your break. And you end up being, oftentimes you don't end up being what you think you're going to be. You know, I started out as a heel, and I was a heel for 2003, 4, 5, 6. I was a heel for 5 years. And I thought that was going to be my trajectory. But then I realized, shit, people like me so much more as a babyface. Never would have thought it. With a face like this, never would have thought it. So it's like, it blew my mind. I was like, all right, cool. Well, let's embrace it, you know. And then when after I did my first run in developmental that didn't work out, I went back home. I came back as a babyface, and then I moved back to the States. I was a heel again. I was like, all right, well, I guess I was like, right, I'm going back to my roots. Here we go. I got rid of that stuff and being a babyface. Right, here we go. 3, 4, 5 months in, I was a babyface again. I guess the universe is trying to tell me something here, you know. So
No, I definitely, and it's one of my things that my trainer, like, he kind of like keeps instilling in me and keeps telling me, he's like, it's best to know how to work both ways, because if you only tell yourself I know how to do a babyface stuff and they want you to be a heel, you're not going to be as good as a heel, and vice versa, right? As a heel, if you're only working heel wrestling, you're not going to learn how to be a babyface.
Yep.
But I did get this one piece of advice, and I definitely appreciated it when it was told to me. That one thing that someone had told me was, I love running as a babyface, because when I turn as a heel, like, I'm able to take what I learned as a babyface, apply it to the heel side, and it becomes that better of a heel. But then when I switch back over, like, my babyface is that much more better again, because you're like learning constantly about what the fans are looking for.
Yeah, see, I've always been very, very lucky in that the fact that I always started out as a heel, and then whatever place I was working for, like, gradually the fans changed me to a babyface. It was never like, oh, okay, well, this week, you know, you've done this and done that, but now we're going to we're just going to turn you face. It's always just happened, which is why I think I've managed to last as long as I have. Which is part of the hardest thing when me and only won the tag titles, because obviously we just turned heel, but then we won the titles, but then no one wanted to boo us, because it was It was one of those moments of like, 4 years and you've finally done it. Like, we don't want to boo this. So it was just, that was one of the hardest things about it. You know, like, we came in as guys that nobody knew who we were. No one had a clue who we were. But then we had the match at TakeOver, and then everyone was just like, okay, we can get behind these guys. So it was like, we'd always been the underdogs. We would always fight from the bottom. So it was just, that's one of the things. If I could turn back the clock, I could wish that we would have won the tag titles as baby faces and then turned heel.
I would have loved that dynamic.
Just for me.
I loved your guys. I loved your dynamic in WWE as it was, because, like, I remember so I think you guys had came to Bel Air, Maryland, and I had watched you guys work, and I was so enamored by the way you were handling, like, just the crowd and stuff, because you guys were working as a heel, and I definitely remember, like, just smiling the whole time, because I was like, I think this is where I need to be in life. It's just, and it inspired me. Like, I think, like, a few months later, I had finally decided, I was like, I want to make the jump too. And so I, like, found some friends who were training, and I jumped in with them, and then we just took off from there.
Yeah, once you get bitten by the bug, it's game over. Like, you better be in this for the long haul, because I tell you what, there's going to be a few times you might be like, I'm going to pull away, I'm done now. And I'll tell you what, once you get bit by that bug, slowly it's just going to keep reeling you back in, I promise you. So,
so one of my questions I like to ask too, and this is really, like, the most in-depth question I probably ask, but what's one of the hardest lessons you've had to learn being in the business?
hurry up and wait. Actually, no, let's rephrase that. Hurry up, but wait. Like, always got told, hey, you're in this for the long haul. This isn't a sprint. This is a marathon. But don't take too long to get there. But what do you mean by that? Just don't take too long to get there. But you just told me this was a marathon. Yeah, but it's a sprint. But you always have to be ready, because it's the cliche thing. You always have to be ready because you never know when you're going to get the call. You genuinely don't. So you always have to, not you always have to be on your toes and thinking that, what's going on? But just, if you truly want to do this and you want to succeed at that real high level, you always need to be like, have good cardio, have the best amount of ring work you can do. Whatever your character is, just be the best at that character. Just know who you are, because you just genuinely don't know when, hey, we've got a tryout. Hey, can you come and do this dark match? Hey, can you come and do this match here? You just don't know. So it's like, and it's really hard, because it blows your mind. It's like, hey, well, don't sprint here, but don't take it slow, but don't take too long. You're like, wait, what? Like, just, yeah, it is. It's yeah, that was one of the hardest things I ever learned. Hurry up, but wait. And I'm like, wait, what? What do you mean by that?
Yeah, it was one of those things that I learned in the military, was the hurry up and wait process. Like, you never have to get ready if you're always ready. And it was one of those things like, yeah, great, you packed your bag up.
Always be ready.
Yeah.
That takes a lot out of you.
Mm-hmm.
You know that. It drains a lot out of you to always be on, but not need to be on, but just in case.
Just in case. Gotta, flip the switch and go. Hurry up, move. Like,
yeah. Well, I mean, you're obviously, you've done way, been in the military, so you know what I mean. Like,
listen, I'm gonna ask one more question, and then we'll jump into the 10 count questions, right? So, you've been obviously 20 years in the business, right? And you've been in a lot of different locker rooms. So I need one do and one don't of the locker room.
One do and one don't. One do. If it's the first locker room you've ever been into, go and introduce yourself to every single person that's in there. If it's a locker room you've been in multiple times, still go and introduce yourself to every single person that's in there. One don't is to take your bag, walk into a corner, sit there, and not say a word.
I like all of that.
Yeah, because I've been in a few locker rooms when, for me, I don't care how many places I've been to that are the same places, I will still go up and say hello to every single person that's there. Be it to the workers, be it to the MC, be it to the people that are selling the merch, be it to the people that are setting up the ring. On the bigger stages, I always made a point to go and, say hello to the guys that ran the cameras, that did the lighting, that did the rigs, that did the rig. Like, if it wasn't for those guys, we couldn't do what we do. So, like, I will always say, never be that guy that literally just walks in and, yeah, I'm here. Shut the fuck up. Like, no.
I 100% agree, because like, I'm one of those guys, like, I'll bring up like all my friends and stuff, we'll all come and we'll ride up together, and then we try to help. Like, we get into the locker room, we'll like introduce ourselves to everybody, obviously try to see what the promoter might need from us, whether it's just like, hey, we want to set up some chairs, we want to do this, we want to do that, whatever, and then we try to help tear down afterwards, just because it's the right thing to do. Like, you don't have to, it's not rocket science. Like, it's just, you're just there to help out. Unless the promoter goes, we need you guys to have your match, okay, come over here, do this, and then get the fuck out.
Just again, like, doesn't hurt to be kind and helpful. Like, it doesn't cost anything.
No,
So,
it really doesn't.
Yeah.
Well, cool. So we're gonna tip this over to my favorite segment of the Three Count Podcast, and that is the Three Count Podcast 10 questions. And Mr. Stone, this is how it works. I'm gonna fire off 10 questions at you, rapid fast, and whatever your answer is, that's your answer.
A one-worded answer. Oof.
It can be a one-worded answer. I'm not saying it has to be.
Okay, right, fine.
But we're gonna put on the imaginary timer for added pressure. Bing! And in the words of Mike Goldberg, here we go. Night owl or early bird?
Early bird.
Favorite movie?
Oh, Scent of a Woman.
Okay. Apple or Android?
Apple.
Favorite Premier team?
West Ham.
Yeah, we're gonna have to cut this like right now.
Whoa. Where's the end? Leave.
Yeah, I ain't seen. That's it.
Leave. Yeah.
All right. Marvel or DC?
Marvel.
All right. Favorite actor?
Robert Downey Jr.
I like that.
Robert Downey Jr. and Tom Hardy. There we go.
Yeah, both great picks. Like definitely. Dogs or cats?
Dogs.
Favorite podcast?
Ooh. HWMF with Seth Rossi and his life partner Bob, or metrosexual life partner Bob. They are two guys that so Seth Rossi was a IFBB professional bodybuilder, and he came together with this guy, and they literally just went, we've got like a few $100 between us, but we're going to start our own company. And they're, it's now blossomed into, they do some great supplements. And Seth Rossi is such a motivational guy. If you get a chance to listen to their podcast, it's life changing. It's funny, it's witty, it brings in some real depth, and you're like, I need to question my life right now. But just like they are so good. And HWMF stands for hardworking mother, But yeah, so.
I like it. Okay. Nominate one person that you want to see on this podcast.
Kurt Stallion.
Yes. 100%. Yeah. And then last but not least, my favorite question to ask every single person who comes on this podcast. Favorite curse word?
Favorite? I can't say it because it's going to be very offensive to every single American in the world.
Oh, we understand. No, see you next Tuesday. You guys haven't figured it out. Yeah, we got you.
If you can find me a word that is as offensive but rolls off the tongue as well, I will stop using that one.
That's the thing, though. Like, I feel like that's what people.
Right. Okay. Here's the thing. From where I come from, it's a term of endearment. Like, oh, you're, just so I just spoke loosely. The first time I said it here, it was like,
yeah.
They were like, you've just spoken death to Lord Voldemort. I'm like, what? Yeah. So. Yeah.
Well, no, because like for me, like I was very thrown off. Like it's fun. We can talk about this kind of like behind the scenes. But I was in England and I had flown in just for a few hours before I was on my way out to Germany. And I was like, and to me, like a term of endearment is "Ayo," like "What's up, y'all?" Yeah. And that is not what that means there. Nope. And I found out rather quickly when people started giving me a mean look.
So here's a funny story about the C-bomb with me. I'll say C-bomb. So the first time I flew, I reported for duty to FCW at the time in 2012, and I'm on the plane and I'm sitting there and I'm just, flying to Tampa. Didn't think anything of it. Anyway, so we take off, we do our thing, and the stewardess comes around with coffee and stuff like that. I went to get up and I knocked my coffee and it spilt everywhere, and I went, oh. Everyone turned and looked at me, and I was like, oh yeah, I can't say it here.
Yeah.
It's like, boom, everyone just looked at me, and I was like, oh yeah, it's really offensive. Like, for me, it's just like, yeah, I'll just say it all the time. Yeah. So then I was like, oh.
Well, that is all my questions that I have. So the last thing I need you to do is to let our listeners and our viewers know where they can find you.
Okay, any single person in the world that has ever bought a ticket to come and see me perform, I absolutely love you from the bottom of my heart. But if you wish to try and find me, I am on Twitter as @StrongStyleBrit. I am on Instagram as @StrongStyleBrit. I am going to be competing in at the New South. Is it New South Wrestling this weekend in Alabama in the Hoss tournament. So if there's people around in that place that aren't buying tickets, come and buy a ticket. I am getting the first round against the 4th generation wrestling star of Brogan Finley, which I am very much looking forward to. So yeah, just come, to the shows that I'm on. Come say hello, and just we'll shoot the shit and see what happens.
Bet. Well, he told you where you can find him. He even gave you his Twitter handle as well as his IG. But like every great part of a wrestling match, we got to take this home. Because this is the 3 Count Podcast presents Now Entering the Ring. And I'm your host, Clifford Red Dog Miller, the man that leads you out that mountain called wrestling. But like every good Sherpa, it's never about me. It's about who's entering the ring. So who's entering the ring? You see him right there. The captain of British Strong Style himself, Martin Stone. And you guys know what to do. Tune into the next episode and be there. Or you're legitimately following us on all of our social media platforms. You're subscribed to our YouTube channel. You're following us on Spotify. You're leaving us 5-star Frog Splash reviews on Apple Podcasts. You're even buying our merch. You can find that on ProWrestlingTees.com, or you can find us on ForYourWear.com. That's right, with the 3 Count Podcast. So you're doing all that stuff. You're telling your friends about us because you know how awesome we are or how not awesome we are. It just kind of depends. Either way, you're talking about us. Business is good. We love it. But do all those things. Share this out. Tell your friends. And either that or you're really just kind of waiting for this episode to end. You're waiting for the outro, but you're choosing another episode to listen to. Peace. What's going on, 3 Count Nation? I'm Clifford Red Dog Miller with the catchphrase. But what I really want you to do right now, go to twitter.com, right? Go over there, find us at the 3 Count _pod, give us a follow, give us a like, give us a comment. We want to talk to you guys. Go to IG at the 3 Count pod. Give us a like, give us a follow, leave us a comment. We want to interact with you. Go to youtube.com, give us a subscribe, turn the bell on, turn the notifications, leave a comment. We want to talk to you. Go to anchor.fm/the 3 Count Podcast, and in there, you can leave us a message, and we will talk to you. Basically, what I'm trying to tell you is that we want to talk to you. We want to have fun with you guys, and we love listening to what you guys have to say. Also, one thing I need you to do for me, the 3 Count Podcast also has merchandise. Oh! At ProWrestlingTees.com/the 3 Count Pod. Please go buy our t-shirts. We love you guys, and we hope you love us too. So show us some support, please.